I'm 19 years old, and there are days where it feels like I'm bending time, making more money in 1 hour on eBay than I used to in a whole week of work. It literally feels illegal. Bruh.
Hey, what's going on, loungers? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Mason T and I am a 20+ year importer and product developer. So whether you are a reseller or a private labeler like myself, basically we are all in the same space of e-commerce, except when you are a reseller, that is the beginner spaces because it's very simplistic. That's usually where people start off, versus the more advanced areas of where I come from in private labeling and custom labeling. We are still all in e-commerce and dealing in tangible goods online. So today's episode is a very interesting one. Have you guys seen this particular video? It's been floating around talking about, like, making money so fast it feels illegal. Now, essentially, Job Sendagala's videos all go back to his funnel, and it leads you to this page where he's trying to help out other eBay resellers by saying things like, transform your eBay business to 10K a month with my proven listing optimization growth accelerator in just 90 days. Now, I'm not trying to be an ageist here because initially when I first watched this video, I was very excited for him. I love the idea of watching a young man try his hand in business and seeing success. Who doesn't like a good story at the end of the day, right? But the more I started to watch what is happening here, something is terribly off with these videos, because when you are doing business for a very long time, you can't help but be very skeptical, as well as be very good at crunching numbers in your mind, because numbers are just being thrown in your face all the time. So I didn't grow up being very, very good at math just because I'm Asian or something like that. No, it's because once you're in this business and everything affects your pockets, the numbers are very, very important. So basically, when somebody tries to position themselves as a professional businessman, if you're not very good at math, if you're throwing out crazy numbers, that is a huge red flag to me immediately. So the biggest message and takeaway of this video is that when people go ahead and put out certain information, it is up to you to be intellectually responsible and vet the information that is being fed to you. So you should be a little bit skeptical of the big numbers that you're hearing, because once you do a little long division, a little bit of multiplication, you start to see exactly what is happening. So I'm not trying to be ageist here. The idea that he's only 19 years old and he's trying to already position himself as an educator is already another huge red flag in itself. The kid hasn't lived long enough to possess the business wisdom to be in the educator role. I'm not saying that young people cannot be successful, but just because you are currently successful and you're very young, you don't know if all the things that you're doing is also very redundant in the things that you're doing leading all up to that success. As opposed to when you are older and you have been successful and you have failed many different things, your next iterations of looking back at your life is going to be far, far different than when you are 19 to when you are 25, when you are 35, when you are 45. So basically what I'm trying to say is that in itself, if you're trying to learn business wisdom from someone, it can't be somebody at 19 years old because they just haven't lived long enough. So it's kind of just common sense, you know what I mean? So immediately we're just going to kick this video off with one of his first claims of success.
I've sold over 33,000 items on eBay. I have done $400,000+
Okay, so if you're going to say something like that, then we're going to break out the calculator right now. If we go ahead and then we take 465,210 like this, and then we divide it by 21502 items sold, it enters to $21.63 as his average sale price. Now, you have to keep in mind, this is including all the shipping charges as well. Now, I already know for a fact that every single item that he does, he just charges a flat rate of $9.99. It doesn't matter what the item is. It doesn't matter what the size is. It doesn't matter what the weight is. It doesn't matter what the cost is. It's all going to be $9.99. So if we go ahead and subtract $9.99 over here, then we are talking an average sale price of $11.64. Now, it is specifically because I am personally not a reseller. I wanted to use the post area of my channel to conduct a small survey just to see how everybody else feels about these average sale prices. So basically you could read the question for yourself. The idea is that how low is the ASP before we don't even really need to do the math on this. We just know that definitely there's not going to be enough margins there to cover our time for producing every single listing that we put up. So the first group of people at a whopping 39% has said that anything below 27.98 would be too low for them. And then the next group of people at 32% said that anything 29.99 below that would not be worth their time in order to create the sale, source the item, photo, and everything together. So now I'm going to show you guys exactly why I conducted this survey the way it is. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive exercise here, and we're going to check out Job's store on eBay. So his store is called Mod Exclus. So for those of you who have multi-monitors and watching this on PC and you want to follow along at home, what you do is you type in eBay space Mod Exclus into Google, and it'll basically take you over to this page. Now, in order to see what he has sold, you just go over to the search here, and then, you just enter like whatever, and then you just hit enter. And then we hit X over here so that, that part is cleared out. Now I'm going to scroll down and then click the sold item. So it's going to check the sold and completed. So now I'm going to sort by the highest first so that you get to see what Job's best flips were. So the first one is $315 for this vintage Polo Ralph Lauren. So I'm just going to pull this listing aside here so that we could take a look at it later. And I want to scroll down to the bottom and then change this to 240 results because we want to try to go through this very quickly. So his first item, $315, the next one, $280, $250, $225. It starts to get gradually lower and lower. Now, if I go down to somewhere around here, we're still at $75. Still very, very good flips. $60 over here, a little bit lower, $50 until we finally get all the way to the bottom at $40 for a flip here. Now, these are all very, very acceptable numbers. I think they're very good, but here we go. Once we go to page 2, what happens? We're at $39 at the top, and then when I come to the bottom, we're starting to go at $24.95. Now, when we took the poll, $24.95 plus $9.99 shipping, that's a $35 sale price. Still very within reason. Now, let's go over to page 3. At page 3, $24.95 up top. Now we're already at $19.95 over here. Now, $19.95 is where it's starting to get very iffy for a lot of people. I see that, in our survey, about 32% of people felt as if like that the $30 average sale price is basically their cutoff point. They really do not want to go any lower than that, right? So as we go to page 4, we have more bread and butter over here where it's $19.95 all the way down here to $19.95. On page 5 is where it starts to really crack at where we see $17.95 over here. And as I go down a little bit more, we got the $16.95, the $16, all the way down to the $15 here. The $15, this is where the other demographic definitely, people are not accepting this kind of average sale price, right? Because the ASP in general is just way too low to have any margins to cover your own labor costs. Because when you think about being self-employed, what are you charging yourself for every single piece that goes out that you had to pack and photo and list and ship and sort clean up, all that stuff together? For every single item, what do you charge yourself? And if you can't cover that, then you're not even covering your base salary, let alone calling yourself a business, you see? So what's important over here is that if I pull up this item, this army pants, okay, and then we take a look at the original listing here, well, how many photos are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then when I click down here, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 photos as well. So it was 11 photos to do his most expensive one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it was 11 photos to do this, and it was 11 photos to do this. But the ASP here is $15, and the ASP is $315, a $300 difference. So this is what I mean by a lot of reseller channels. They put their best foot forward. Here by what solds. Wow, look at these amazing flips. But now this is what your below bread and butter is, right? Now, I personally don't do reselling, so I needed that poll for you guys to basically give me some bearings of exactly what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Now, as we go over to page 6, what happens here? We go from 14 down to from $15 down to $14. And then on page 7, mind you, is where we are past the halfway point. So we start at $14, which is unacceptable to most people. And then when we scroll down, we're at $12. So now let's go over to page 8 and then just do the rest of this very quickly. We're at the $9.99, where basically everybody is against $9.99, and we're definitely not doing less than $9.99. So page 9, we're at $8 already. So page 9 is just where 100% of you guys find this unacceptable, right? So page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12. So we're just going to go through this real quick. So at the bottom of page 10, $4.99, and then at the bottom of page 11, we start from $4.99 to $3.99, and then finally, I just want to show you page 12 so that you could see how low Job is willing to go in his settings. So we could go all the way down to 99 cents for some of these items. Now, mind you, when you look through a lot of these items, okay, it could be jeans, it could be coats still at 99. It really doesn't matter what it is. It's about time, right? So here we go. If I went ahead and then just let me kill off these two first, and let's just randomly open these, right? So I'll just open a couple of these like that. So I got 5 examples over here. Now let's click on to see the original listing, the original listing. Okay. And here's what I've noticed. Every single item that Job does is at $9.99 shipping here. So it's $9.99 shipping. No matter what the item is, it is always at $9.99 shipping. Now, him being from University Place, Washington, if you're going to do this kind of flat rate type of setting and you are selling stuff that all could range anywhere between like slightly under 1 pound to over 2 pounds, possibly, depending on, it's a coat or something like that. Doing $9.99 shipping from Washington is probably the worst place in the United States to be in, outside of, Alaska, Hawaii, of course, because you're in the furthest place. Most people in the United States, if you didn't know, about 70% of Americans live on the eastern side of the Rocky Mountains, okay? So where does everybody live? Everybody lives in California, Texas, and everywhere on the eastern side. So to be in Washington, all the way in the upper northwestern region, you are the furthest away from everybody. So you have the worst zoning difference. As opposed to if you were in Pennsylvania, it would be way more ideal that you could handle all of the customers from anywhere from Ohio to Indiana and Chicago, and then over to New York, the tri-state area, into Boston, all the way down even into Tennessee. Like your rates are still going to be pretty good because you're basically 1 or 2 shipping zones away from everybody, right? So something to really think about if you were going to set up your store settings with a flat rate type of shipping, and it doesn't matter where it goes, and it really matters where you are. So if you were located somewhere around like North Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania and stuff, then it's very likely that if you had a $9.99 shipping setting, you'd probably be making like 50 cents here or possibly $2 over there. But for where Job is, if you're setting it at $9.99, I highly doubt that you're making any money on shipping whatsoever, averaged out. Sure, things that he ships over to Idaho or Oregon, yeah, that's within his shipping zone, and those things are going to be very, very cheap. You'll have it at like, 6 something, under $7. But how many orders are going to Idaho and Oregon, right? So coming back, I want to point out some other things that I thought was very interesting here. So if I scroll down and then we click on view all revisions so that you could see exactly when this listing started, it's sold on May 18th. Okay. So when I click over here, this item, he's held on to it since February of 2024. And then you could see that the sales start, end, and then constantly changing the buy it now price until finally here we are in May that was the last revision. So if I go back to this one over here, right, and then let's click on view all revisions. So this one he's also had since February 2024. This NASCAR shirt, let's click on this one. This one is in June 2024. We are in June of 2025 now. So pretty much a whole year has gone by before he finally got rid of this thing. And let me see, November 22nd of 2023. Right. So how about this one? When we click on this, right, November 13th of 2023, right? And then when did you finally sell this item? May 19th. So November of 2023 finally sold in May 19th of 2025. This is what I mean, right? A lot of sellers, when they do this, they put their best foot forward, but when they have to hold on to something, they actually have to hold on to it for a pretty long time. I also have a clip of one of Joe's vlogs so that you know exactly pretty much when he finally got his warehouse. And basically he's been holding on to these items even before he had his warehouse. So in many of Job's videos, he likes to talk about his 3,000 square foot warehouse. Now, he is located in Washington, and basically 3,000 square foot warehouse, that's going to cost them somewhere about like $3,500 every single month. How do I know this? Well, basically it's because I also have a warehouse myself and I know roughly what the costs and the rates are. But he also has mentioned this in a previous vlog before.
I have to put down a 3 times deposit and 10K deposit. Then I have to come up with 3K every single month.
Okay, so 3K every single month. Now, when we pull up the calculator over here, I want to show you, okay, that 3K every single month is not enough to pay for a professional warehouse, especially something like this. Basically, you also have to pay for utilities as well as insurance and something called CAM fees, which is common area fees. So I would estimate to give him about like $3,500. So at $3,500 over here, okay, multiplied by 12, right? Then every single year he has to pay $42,000 just for the warehouse. So when you think about like what the ASP is, it would have been better if he's able to just do this business without having to pay for the warehouse so that he could at least make the $42,000 every single year. So I want to be clear that when I make these videos, it is not like I don't come from a place of empathy. I have never made fun of anybody that I was critical of in any kind of personal capacity whatsoever. This is an informational channel, so it is always information versus information here. What's happening in many of these videos is that people generally want to believe in humanity, and many of these videos are taken at face value. So therefore, a lot of the comments that you read on this particular video, people are none the wiser. At the same time, he is intentionally promoting all of his accomplishments as huge accomplishments with these huge numbers, but he's also being very intellectually dishonest about it, because once you crunch those two numbers together, you find out that it's really not as impressive that it actually seems. Now, I also want to put out there that when you don't vet the information that's being presented in front of you, you're also being very intellectually careless, because what's going to happen? It's going to change your worldview, change your mindset, because you're going to be indoctrinated in a certain way, thinking that, oh, okay, if I follow his system, I could be as successful as him. But now we're finding out that the average sale price minus the shipping, we're only looking at a little over $5. And this is before taxes and eBay's cuts, as well as all other sorts of overhead expenses. So Job also likes to touch up on the idea of using virtual assistants. I think VAs are very good, but it depends on your situation and what your business setup is. I did watch a whole video where he explains how he uses VAs. I felt as if some parts were very vague, some parts were very good, but essentially, when you look at his listings, I truly question how useful the VAs are in his particular setup over here. So essentially what he does is that he takes the photos and then he uploads them to a Dropbox for them to go ahead and work with and create listings. Now, when they create listings, they only create the drafts for him. He still has the final say in finalizing every single draft of which one goes on and which one doesn't, because he may or may not agree with the title that they researched and put together. So when you think about how his workflow is, what he specifically said is that every single day, he would just go ahead and upload about 60 items over to them. Now, he takes about 11 photos per every listing that he does. So when you do the math, he's doing 660 photos every single day. That's quite a lot of work. Now, the whole idea of having virtual assistants is so that you could streamline something and remove the touch points so that you don't have to do it. So other than the having the title, as far as uploading the photos and then making the bank drafts and stuff, then they would also have to put in a lot of the item specifics. But when we scroll down over here, you'll notice that basically every single one of Job's listings, they don't have any item description whatsoever. I figured that if you're going to be paying for a service of somebody else helping you out with the listings, then the least that they could do is also add some mobile-friendly HTML. When you think about the market landscape these days, 45% of people who are shopping online are shopping with mobile devices. So I'm just going to go ahead and include a very short touch-up tutorial. It's going to be short and sweet of basically how to do HTML on your listings should you want to add that into your eBay service. So this particular video that I did in the past was from a subscriber that asked if I could help him get rid of some of these items that he was stuck with for quite a few months. And I would just go in and help him with his back-end settings a bit. Now, I also got a comment on this video that said, could you make a video to show us how to create back-end descriptions like that, please? So this is going to be a short tutorial on exactly how to make those things happen. So the first thing that we want to do is make sure that we know exactly what the ideal pixel size is for the platform that we are working with. eBay is 1600 by 1600. You always want to look up whichever platform that you are working with. Now, the next thing is that you want an image hosting website. I personally like to recommend Post Image for other people. Why? Because it's free and it's super easy to use. So definitely look into this. Now, the next thing is the actual HTML creation tool, right? So I use thewizo.com. Why this particular website? Because it's the most simplistic thing. Not because I don't understand how to do HTML. It's not that. It's that what we used to do prior to 2010 to where we are now, you want to have the most simplistic type of HTML, period, because there's way more people using mobile every single day in order to buy their stuff. So you want stuff to load very quickly. Plus, people don't like it anymore when it is very fancy and all cluttered. So you don't want any backgrounds. You just want clean images, white backgrounds, and then to describe your stuff in a very organized fashion. The more organized, the more clean it is, the better your listing is going to perform, especially the way that things are going to look on mobile. So that's why you want to use this. Any other website that's trying to sell you different kind of fancy schmancy templates and stuff like that, it only bogs things down and you're paying for something that is not what the customer is looking for. So over here, they have a couple of very simple layouts. So they just have the 1-column layout over here, or you could switch it to 2-column layouts like this, 3-column layouts, or you could just straight up write your own HTML code. Now, what I recommend is that you pick one of these simple templates, and then you could basically change the color like this, okay? Now, if you want to know how to change into more fancy colors and stuff, definitely come back to YouTube University and then look up, simple HTML and understand how to change the HTML on stuff. Other than that, then just use the preset settings, all right? So if you don't have the image hosting website, it's okay. You could upload photos to eBay, or you could take your existing listings and then just go ahead and right-click on them to find out exactly what the image URL is, and then just use the image URL, okay? So I have done that over here, and I'm just going to show you that this is one of Job's listings, okay? And this is the vintage Polo Ralph Lauren one. This is his highest flip, right? So I'm just going to copy this one. And then if you right-click any of the images, you just go ahead and click copy image address. So when you are creating a listing over here, I would just go ahead and double click this and then hit paste here. And now I have the Polo, blah, 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 et cetera, right? And then over here is that I would go ahead and click on copy image address. So I have the image over here. And then this is the image that I would just highlight first and then hit backspace to delete that. Then the box over here to add an image. Now, this whole thing is in German, okay? But it's super intuitive and easy to understand that you don't really need to understand German. So the URL over here, I'm just going to go ahead and paste, and then boom. Now I have the image over here, okay? If I go over to his original image right here, and then I highlight this, and then we go ahead and get the copy image, double click here, and then I paste. Okay. And now I have his Polo Ralph Lauren, like right there. Okay. So over here, I've already done something that we're already put together. So I'm just going to blow this up. And then you see that I've already put together a little listing like this, right? And I want to show you what it's going to end up looking like. So here you want to add like your different details of what your shipping times are, et cetera, et cetera. You guys already know how to create different kinds of, listings already, right? Without using HTML code. But here, there's the template preview. So when I click on this, this is going to show you what the listing actually looks like to the customer if they were on PC. But what's more important is that these things are dynamic listings, so they are also very mobile friendly. And in order to see things on mobile while you're working on it on PC, you hit F12 over here. Now we have switched over to F12, and then you can see there is a toggle button on the top right. And then when you click on this, it changes the device. So right now we're on PC, and then this is on PC, excuse me, right? And then when I tap this again, we are on the mobile devices. Over here, there is a pull tab that I am currently on iPad Pro. If I wanted to switch this over to your typical iPhone, so iPhone 12 Pro or something like that, iPhone XR, iPhone Pro 14 Pro Max, which is what I have. When I click over here, now you can see what this listing would have looked like on somebody's iPhone, right? So this is very important that the listing is dynamic and it shifts whether they're on PC or they're on iPhone or they're on a tablet. It's always going to shift in a very, very clean way. Now, there's a very wild ideology that is injected into this video towards the end of it. And it is specifically talking about like how fast fashion and landfills and stuff like that. So I don't want you guys to think that I just blindsided the guy. I did reach out about 2 weeks ago to specifically ask him about this ideology and where did you get this from? Because this is not the first time I have ever heard this particular rant. So I asked him, with quotes over here from a transcript. Therefore, we have to step in, we flip what they discard, we give value another shot at life, et cetera, et cetera. Where did you get this ideology from? Who is feeding you this? And then he said, this is my ideology with a happy face and pinned my comment to the top. I then followed up and asked him if he would like to debate his ideas, and clearly he has ignored me. So basically the point is this, right? It's not that I don't want to have people to come onto the show or have any kind of reach out or dialogue or anything like that. It's that every single time, this is exactly what happens. When you challenge somebody's worldview and say, okay, let's rationalize our thought here, they don't want to have anything to do with it. Then you know that this is not something that they wholeheartedly believe in. This is something that we put together in order to get people to sway them in a certain direction. So now I'm going to show you guys exactly what that ideology is. I just want to interject in the middle of the video here that I am not against classes, courses, or people promoting their funnels. Not at all. It depends on what the situation is. People need to be very clear of what they're getting themselves into. For example, when something is a course, it's very good if you need that basic information. Things in courses are definitely going to be a little bit more rudimentary, a little bit more fundamental, because when you're offering a course, there's no teacher there. It's just a recording. So basically what you're going to get is just an organized amount of information as opposed to you seeking out that information yourself. So what you're paying for is a premium to have all of that information organized for you so that you could save time as opposed to you deep diving everywhere collectively to get that kind of information. A classroom is if everybody is trying to learn the exact same thing. Like, what are we doing? We're taking a cooking class and learning how to bake muffins. Everybody is following a flow chart. Everybody's following a certain system. We're going to do this, 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 and this first. So these are all a little bit more on the shallow end of the pool. Once you start getting really deep, then you're going to need tailored mentoring, right? You're going to need tailored consultations because everybody comes from different walks of life. So when you are trying to produce a product, everybody is interested in different categories, different niches. People are of different financial background, and people are trying to see different levels of success. So for those things, you would need to speak to a mentor one-on-one so that they could get a good grasp of where you're from and where you want to go so that they could tailor something for you. And that moves the needle the most. So when you think about classes and courses, those are all the beginning portions to help you build a little bit of muscle. But when it really comes to setting somebody up for full-on success, you would actually need tailored one-on-one mentorship in order to make that happen. So this is why I don't sell any classes or courses, because I'm not big on that, because basically you could kind of sort of dig up all that information for free on your own. The only thing that you would pay somebody for is to have all of that information organized neatly for you so that you could save time. That's really what it is. We're just trading money for time. It's not going to be better information than if you dug it up yourself. All right, back to the show.
But more than that, it's a rebellion against corporate waste, a rebellion against big brands, because big brands are the real problem. They manufacture trends just to kill them 3 months later. They overproduce, overhype, and throw away perfectly good items every single year. And they fill landfills full of clothes that were never worn. Shelves literally get cleared every single month for new lines that nobody asked for. They don't recycle and they literally don't care. Therefore, we have to step in. We flip what they discard. We give value another shot at life. Resellers aren't hoarders, we're heroes.
So we're in a
We
cave.
fight fashion with smart flipping. We make money and we make meaning.
Now, before I get into my full rebuttal of his ideology, I just want to play you guys a clip from this particular video where he is specifically addressing fast fashion brands such as H&M or Zara.
The kicker. Fast fashion copies vintage. They recreate 80s and 90s styles with cheaper fabric, lower quality, and inflated margins. Real vintage, it lasts. Fake vintage, it fades.
Okay, so the idea is that he is not a fan of H&M or Zara, so definitely he's not going to be selling these things. So here's my full rebuttal of the ideology that he put out in this video. This is the most egregious version of romanticizing, glamorizing, sensationalizing what reselling actually is. Reselling is nothing but a type of arbitrage from one market over to another market, and he doesn't actually even practice what he preaches. When you see the other video that he did as he's talking about fast fashion, basically he's saying don't buy the fast fashion stuff that disintegrates after 2 washes, buy the real vintage clothing, just like how you see in his store of Levi's 501 jeans to Ralph Lauren sweaters. Now, he specifically says over here, it's a rebellion against corporate waste, a rebellion against big brands because big brands are the real problem. Right. But you're doing nothing against those big brands because what you sell and what those big brands are doing are unrelated. Now, I'm not going to say that Shein and whatever are directly the culprits. Some people believe that. Some people are not sure about that. That's not the point. The point is that you are not the last stop or doing anything against those particular big brands who are supposedly landfilling the landfills, right? So next, when you say things like we have to step in, we flip what they discard, we give value another shot at life. No, you're not flipping what H&M and whatever they discard because we all already know that Shein, H&M, Zara already priced their stuff at such a low retail price that there's definitely no room to arbitrage and find margins in this. So sure, you're still going to find some people who have Shein and Zara and H&M on places like the eBay platform, but even Tech and Sports has specifically said, definitely avoid Shein. If you want to get stuck with this thing for months on end, years on end, don't buy Shein.
If no other Shein is ever listed on eBay, it will take 900 days plus, over 1,000 days for eBay to completely sell out, which is almost 4 years. So do you want to wait 4 years or more to sell your item on eBay? If not, then do not pick up Shein. If you would like to wait 4 years, potentially 4 years, then go ahead. Bless your heart and pick up as much Shein as you want.
So what is happening here? You're not dealing with those things that are the culprits to the actual problem. You're finding arbitrage in something else. And arbitrage is a type of opportunity. So now when you start to say things like, we flip what they discard and we give value another shot at life, not at all. Because when you think of the way that most people are sourcing things, whether it is from a discount store such as DD's Discount, TJ Maxx, or going to a thrift store such as Goodwill, these places are already open to the public for people to buy for personal consumption and use. So what are you doing here? You're here to add another pit stop to add a markup to these items. Now, I'm not against people finding opportunity. That's not the point. The point is that you're not going to go ahead and spin this as if you're the hero in this story. That's crazy. Now, for him to finally say, resellers aren't hoarders, we're heroes. We fight fashion with smart flipping, we make money, and we make meaning. I don't know what you're talking about over here, because ultimately, at the end of the day, what you're doing has nothing to do with how fast fashion is doing. This is, if anything, he has highlighted that this is two separate markets. Don't be fooled by the fast fashion stuff that tries to copy what vintage is. Do actual vintage clothing, which is where some of the margins are that you could find in order to still have a slightly profitable business. So what is going on? Why are you trying to shift people's mindset that, like, yeah, do more reselling. Don't worry about other things. You are a saint. You are an activist. You are doing the right thing here. That's not what's going on whatsoever. And he has nothing H&M, Zara, or Shein in his store either. So granted that I am very critical of the reselling space, I still believe that reselling is a great place for people to start and get their feet wet. However, as you are progressing in this field of e-commerce, you still have to have a lot of time in the entrepreneurial seat of how to develop the business. So is there anybody in the reselling community that is actually on the right path? Absolutely. So I'm going to feature him right now. This is Joe & Co, right? Some of you guys may know him as Profit First Reseller. I have featured him in last week's episode. Now, there's a couple of listings that he has over here that I'm going to show you that actually has a lot of sales behind it. So this particular item has 213 sold, and then this one has 532 sold, and this one has 65 sold. So what is happening here? This one, I want to show you guys that last week when I reviewed his store, this was at 510 sold, and this week it's at 532 sold, which means that he has sold 22 units in the past week of just this one particular item. So let's talk about this situation for a little bit. This is a semi-replenishable listing. On this channel, I often urge people to go from these one-off sales, one-off listings, one-off items to start going into replenishable items. But if you can't initially do that just yet, you still have to find a way to get a bulk supply of something because it is an absolute game changer in your store. Joe & Co does something about like $40,000 every single month in revenue. Let's make that very clear. Now, here's what's happening over here, okay? His backend settings is changed so that it says that his listings does not end just because he's ran out of stock. That way he doesn't lose the metadata behind the listing. A lot of people who come on here and run their mouth about, I'm going to teach you how to do eBay, et cetera, then they go off and they talk about bank drafts, and then they talk about the algorithm, have no true understanding of what the algorithm actually is. If you really want to ride the ability of the algorithm, then you have to start following the things that the algorithm actually cares about, which is the conversion rate and the sales history. So when you don't end the listing and you still have the sales history, and you're able to go ahead and replenish this listing, as you sell more and more and more, that's when eBay recognizes your listing and says, I see, this listing is very highly likely to convert. And when you have that, you get bumped up into the rankings so that organically you are on the first page. Now, of course, this particular listing would never compare to a brand new listing of a Wiimote. However, we're not in that category. He's in the used category. So when you think about selling a Wiimote in the used category versus Joe & Co, very likely he's going to be able to sell first before you are. So what is actually happening here? This listing for Joe & Co, he has carved out a nice piece of real estate on eBay. Generally, when you think about selling game controllers and stuff, if I have one that I found, from my hauls and stuff, right? And then you have two and he has one and she has one. Basically, we're all taking turns selling this item, because once I sell mine, it's not like I have more. So then somebody else will come along and say, hey, do you have any more? But then another seller will fulfill that. But what Joe & Co over here has is that you don't know if he has 50, 150 controllers in stock ready to go. So what happens is that this listing is ranked very high in the system on page 1. So what happens? It's never going to be my turn to go. It's always going to be his item selling over and over and over again. But more realistically, what's going to happen is that it's more like he sells 7, somebody gets to sell 1. He sells another 8, somebody gets to sell 1. He sells another 5, somebody gets to sell 2. It's kind of like that. So this is a step in the right direction with semi-replenishable listings. By the time you develop your own item, or you have wholesale, or you are importing things, those are the times where you have constant replenishable listings that you could really build on platforms such as eBay, Amazon, Walmart, Etsy, and they all function this way. Every single platform is specifically looking for one thing: conversion rate, because conversion rate means that this item is likely to sell. If it's likely to sell, then this is what the listing that the platform is going to show customers first, because time is money. Generally, the gist of it is that if you're going to go into this, if you're going to try your hand in business and you're already doing this for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you're already in this for the long haul. So if you're going to be in it for the long haul, then you should pivot your business to reflect that. And in order to do this, it's not going to be like these little reseller tactics. There is a portion of the video where he gets into use my inventory management system, and it has significantly reduced, I'm able to pack and do 60 orders in under an hour, something like that. But the way that he framed that whole segment was to make it sound as if like there's a streamlining process. A streamlining process would actually be removing touch points within a system, meaning either I don't have to do it anymore, or I have some other way that significantly reduces the overall time. But what's actually happening in these Uline boxes with all of these poly mailers and these little stickers of SKUs and stuff, he's still doing all of those poly mailers and sticker SKUs one by one in the beginning. So how much time have you spent packing and processing all those things before the sale actually comes, where then it's crunch time? Okay, now all it needs is just a shipping label, and then we could slap it on, and go. So overall, if I had to clock his overall work time, it doesn't significantly reduce anything, versus that if you were in a private label sector, then your stuff is already pre-made that way, ready to go from the factory. So now you're using the factory work in order to do all that stuff. So I personally don't actually pack anything. We only go to the shipping label portion, and then it's ready to go. So just like how I showed with Profit First Reseller, it is starting to roll in that direction. You're going from reselling over to semi-replenishable listings, and then hopefully one day it'll be just fully replenishable listings. That way, when your listings start to rank up, you have a piece of real estate that you are always in the front pages that you don't have to pay a lot of promoted ads for. And that's where you are really, really making the money and not losing your margins to things like, promoted ads and finding other ways to lower your price and doing sales and just constantly losing margins. That's what a business is actually supposed to be about. Anyways, guys, that is the video. If you enjoyed that, please give it a big like. And if you learned something, please consider subscribing. As always, I'll see you guys in the next. Take care.